Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here today on the day one of the Ocean Conference. And in the framework of the Ocean Conference, we are very pleased to have now the official release of the publication called the First Global Integrated Marine Assessment and its technical abstracts. For the first part of the event, we will have Ms. Amina Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General, the President of the General Assembly, and the Under-Secretary General for Legal Affairs and United Nations Legal Council. So please, Madam Deputy Secretary General, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, President of the General Assembly, Excellency Mr. Peter Thomson, United Nations Legal Council, Mr. Soares, Senator the Honourable Maxine McLean, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade of Barbados, Honourable Maggie Barry, Minister of Conservation of New Zealand, our Executive Director of IOC UNESCO, Mr. Vladimir Rybin, Deputy Director of UNEP, Mr. Jamil Ahmed, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I really am today very pleased to join you. I bring you warm greetings from Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who attaches really great importance to protecting the world's oceans and to the scientific work that underpins that effort. In recent years, the international community has focused even greater attention on oceans and the essential role that they're playing in sustaining life on Earth. The agreement by world leaders to include as part of the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development a dedicated goal to the world's oceans provides a really strong basis for intensifying global efforts. Scientific understanding of the oceans is fundamental to achieving our shared objectives of conserving and sustainably using the oceans, seas and marine resources for sustainable development. Climate change remains a potent threat to the health of the oceans. The capacity of the oceans to absorb CO2 is declining. Sea level has risen by 20 centimeters since the start of the 20th century, endangering coastlines and posing an existential threat to the small islands. In this regard, the regular process for global reporting and assessment of the state of marine environment, including the socio-economic aspects, aims to strengthen the science policy interface by regularly reviewing the environmental, economic and social aspects of the world's oceans. The first global integrated marine assessment is the first comprehensive report on the state of the world's oceans and our knowledge about them. The assessment reflects painstaking work by experts and scientists from all regions of the world, and their conclusions should serve as a call to action. The assessment warns that the world's oceans are facing pressures of such enormous magnitude that the limits of their carrying capacity are being reached or surpassed. Moreover, these experts tell us delays in implementing solutions to the problems facing the world's oceans will lead to greater environmental, social and economic costs. We must heed these warnings as we strive to fulfill the vision set out in the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. The assessment can be a point of reference for current efforts to develop an internationally binding, legally binding instrument on marine biodiversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. Its messages should be heard far and wide as we press ahead with the implementation of the Paris Agreement on climate change. I commend this assessment to world leaders, policymakers, and all those working to ensure that the world's oceans, seas, and marine resources can continue to play a unique and vital role for today's and future generations. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Secretary General. And now we give the floor to the President of the General Assembly.
Thank you very much, Deputy Secretary General. Excellencies, all courtesies observed. This day marks the beginning, as you know, of the Ocean Conference, a week in which we're setting out to reverse the cycle of decline that humanity has put upon the ocean. As such, it's probably the most important week we'll ever have, in our generation at least, in terms of our relationship with the ocean. And the aim, of course, is to restore the relationship of balance and respect that used to be there in previous generations before ours did what we did by way of plastics and taking fish stocks to tipping points of collapse and acidifying the oceans and warming the oceans and allowing piracy at high seas and all those things that we've put upon the ocean. This is the time when we're going to correct all that. All fail, and we are determined not to fail. As we speak, there are many meetings such as this going on around the United Nations. There's the Partnership Dialogue on Marine Pollution kicking off this afternoon, and I do recommend that all of you try and get to the 7 partnership dialogues that are on this week, because that's where you'll hear the truth of the problems that we've put upon the ocean in all its various aspects, and where you'll hear the best of solutions that we're putting together. When I say we, I mean all of humanity. We've invited the global authorities and opened it up to civil society, non-governmental organizations, private sector, scientific community. They're all here. So the best of what we've got, we're going to hear and we're going to capture this week and take forward as our communal work plan in the years ahead, as we forge on through to the next way station of SDG 14, which is 2020, when 3 of the targets of SDG 14 mature. In the intervening 3 years, we'll know what work we have to do, because we'll have the outcomes of the partnership dialogues. We'll have what will probably be 1,000 voluntary commitments by then from governments and civil society. And we will have the outcomes of the plenary, the best ideas from there. We're going to capture all that material and work on it together and share it together over the coming years. We've recognized that before policies can be made and plans can be implemented, we require deep and thorough understanding of our oceans through scientific analysis of the causes of its decline. And it was for this reason that the UN, on the recommendation back in 2002 of the World Summit on Sustainable Development, appointed a group of experts in 2010 to produce the World Ocean Assessment by 2014. And through the combined effort of the co-chairs during the first 5-year cycle of the regular process and hundreds of scientists and experts, a final report called the First World Assessment was made available on the website of Dwalos back in January 2016, I believe it was. This assessment, comprising 55 chapters and addressing 10 main themes, reviews the environmental, economic, and social aspects of the world's oceans. So it's very fitting that the official launch of the publication of this assessment, along with its technical abstracts, is being held on this starting day of the Ocean Conference. Why? Because we are basing our conference firmly in science. To back up that, I'm sending out a letter today to all member states drawing their attention to this important achievement of the scientific community and the United Nations family. I particularly want to recognize the commitment and leadership of all involved in this process. Certainly it wasn't me. There were a lot of people who did a lot of work on this, including the scientific community, member states, Secretariat, and in particular current co-chairs of Barbados and New Zealand. Again, as I say, in pretty much every meeting that I go to, it's wonderful to see that there are people from opposite sides of the world. Sweden and Fiji just come from a Ghost Gear initiative where it was Belgium and the Pacific Islands. Opposite sides of the world, north and south, developing. We're all in this together. Everybody realizes that the ocean is something where we're all going to succeed or fail together. So it's my hope that this assessment acts as a precursor to scientifically driven assessments and evaluations as to how we're proceeding with our ocean remedial work in the future. I also hope that it will be an important tool in the hands of decision makers and all stakeholders who will be shaping the future of our ocean, including in the context of sustainable development. So in conclusion, as I said this morning, we're here to hear the truth about the state of the ocean, and we're here to find the best of solutions. Human-induced problems have human-derived solutions, and we will find them. But we must do that with our feet firmly rooted in science. And so this first world assessment the first global integrated marine assessment, is going to be a very major contributor in that regard. So I'm very pleased to be here as part of the official launch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And now we'll hear the remarks of the Under-Secretary General for Legal Affairs and United Nations Legal Council.
Actually, I didn't have remarks, but I'm going to do some remarks. My remarks were to thank the President of the General Assembly and also the Deputy Secretary General, who has devoted a lot of time to the SDGs, including this one. But when I saw the volume, I have to say that I'm deeply moved to see this baby. And you heard the history of the regular process. The President of the General Assembly has explained that this is coming since 2002, but I wanted also to call your attention to what this means in terms of commitment and engagement from civil society, from scientists, beyond the work of states and bureaucrats. And we have a lot of these scientists in the room today, and I thank you for that. Professor Alam Simco, Professor Lorna Innis, many others, Professor Walter Munk also, the Einstein of the Oceans. This was done on a voluntary basis. All this scientific work, all these contributions by institutes, universities, young scientists, established scientists, this was done on a voluntary basis. And I think that is so remarkable that I wanted to underscore that fact. So I hope we're starting a very, very productive week for the cause of oceans, which are in a dramatic state, as you have pointed out on your speech this morning. I told you already, but thank you so much for referring plastics in the oceans, which is a personal obsession of mine. And we hope this will be a major contribution to the process. As Minister Berry said this morning, you cannot manage what you can't measure. So now, or as from now, policymakers don't have many more excuses of not having the adequate scientific knowledge to correct things. Thank you very much, and thank you for being here.
Just before I leave the podium, looking out in the audience there, I have to recognize one person because he's been for almost half a generation one of the world's leading advocates on climate action and ocean action. I'd just like the former President of the Republic of Kiribati, if he could just stand up. Anote, I do this very selfishly. Anote and I shared a room at the South Pacific Forum for a year back in, 1978 or something. Since then, he's not only led his country, but he's led the fight around the world to address climate action and ocean action. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you very much to the President of the General Assembly, the Deputy Secretary General, and to the USGO of Legal Affairs. Please stay seated. They're going to leave the room, but we will have the panel of experts coming now to brief on the presentation. Thank you very much. You scored them up.